The truth about living in New York City alone. I figured I'll just film this video just chilling around in my apartment. Chilling around, is that something people say? Just hanging out in my apartment. Maybe some of you are looking for apartments here or wanting to live alone or just want to know like some honest feedback about what it's like to live alone, especially as a woman too. If you don't know, I've been in New York City for almost 5 years now, and for the first 4 years I had roommates and I lived in 9 different neighborhoods in the city. So now I finally made the upgrade to my own studio. So if you haven't checked out my studio tour, definitely do that. I'll link it above. And I have just a ton of videos on how to get an apartment in New York City and how I got this one. So I won't get into how I got this studio in this video. I'm recovering from a cold. And y'all know that I'll be really honest with you and I'll give my real honest feedback about my experiences here kind of from a realistic perspective, because I do live kind of far out and I don't live in the safest neighborhood, and living alone can be kind of scary at times. I moved in about 9 months ago, actually a little closer to 10 months. Oh my God, it's the middle of July, 10 months ago. And it's always been kind of my dream to live by myself in New York City ever since I lived alone in college. I had my own studio when I lived in Seattle for 2 years, and that was just such a great experience. There are some really great things that I experienced living here alone. I mean, especially during COVID, that was why I moved to my own place, really. Not just because I wanted to experience it, or just to have my own space or more space, but because safety-wise, it just became tricky with roommates, not being sure who was exposed. And at that time, we didn't know much about COVID, so it was really, really scary. It still is, but living alone has allowed me to, fortunately, be able to just kind of isolate, at least in the middle of quarantine when I moved here. Really, the only way I could have moved to this apartment by myself was because of the COVID prices. This studio, I just found out, okay, cause I disclosed my rent in my studio video, my apartment tour, but I pay $14.50 a month, but the normal rent is like $2,800 and something per month. I'm like, that is insane. That's actually double what I'm paying. So I got a massive discount moving here during COVID. So I can't say that like everyone's gonna be able to find a studio at this price, which is why I'm like hanging on to this place, even though it's not really a neighborhood that I want to live in forever. But we'll start with some plus sides, like obviously having your own space. You come home and everything is in the exact same spot you left it, which is so great. And it's so great to have that privilege, have your stuff be your stuff, and like have everything really private, because I'm a very private person, believe it or not, even though I have a YouTube channel. But on the flip side of that, like having roommates, it's nice when they're really clean and you come home and it was kind of a mess, but when you left and then you come home and it's clean, it didn't have to do anything. That's also like kind of a con. You come home and everything is exactly how you left it. If you live alone and you've experienced this, let me know that you have to clean everything like once a day. Otherwise it just builds up. Like I cleaned my apartment last night. It's still generally pretty clean, but like my dining room table is full of shit. And it's all shit just from this morning. I've been at work all day and I come home and I'm like, wow, how did it get like this already? And dishes pile up really quickly. But also like when I moved in, there's no shared supplies. Like you don't split the cost with other roommates to like buy cleaning supplies for the bathroom and the kitchen and the floor. And there's just a lot of little things that add up that you wouldn't think to add to your budget. Swiffer mops and bags for your trash, and like detergent for your dishwasher. I mean, toilet paper and paper towels if you use those. You have to cover all those costs, obviously. So it's not just the elevated rent, it's the cost of living. I do pay more in my bills in like Con Ed and Spectrum and, you know, Wi-Fi and stuff, but it's not that much more from when I had roommates because I'm using less of everything. My electricity is way lower. And, you know, it's just me cooking and it's just me on my Wi-Fi. You know, like everything that's plugged in, it's just me. So because I can control it, it ends up being cheaper. So there's like, that's something nice as well. But I do have to say that, I mean, just because I have a studio doesn't mean that it's quiet all the time. Like I'm on a floor with 2 other apartments, which honestly is not that much. So I have walls that are directly next to other people. So sometimes it actually feels like I have roommates because you can hear everything. And if I take you into my bathroom, oh my gosh, I look like a ghost, what the hell? Okay, so actually that vent right up there, where are you? I can smell like my neighbors above me smoking weed, which is fine, I don't mind that, but it's like, it feels like you have roommates. This wall is so thin that I can hear when the person next to me is peeing, showering, and music and washing their hands. I can hear it. So sometimes I just close the vent just for sound reasons, and then I close my bathroom door for sound reasons as well, but that goes for my closets. It's just that wall is so thin, and I don't know, sound really carries. So sometimes it's frustrating because you're paying for your own place and then it's actually not quiet. So that sucks. There's a lot about safety that living alone in New York is just different from when I lived alone in Seattle. I mean, when I lived alone in Seattle, I was on the first floor and I did have like a balcony type thing. It's more like a patio, I guess. If you're above the first floor, then it would be a balcony, but I had a little patio space. But people would come and like pee on it in Seattle, like, cause I was right around a bunch of bars, and I felt so unsafe. Seattle is generally a really safe city. I mean, at the time I lived there, it was becoming more unsafe, I'll say that. And someone like left a black backpack on my patio at one point too, and I had to call the police and be like, hey, can you remove this? Because I don't know what it is. Living alone in New York, you know, I learned that that's a deal breaker for me. Even if it's the perfect location, perfect studio, if it's on the first floor, no matter what, I won't take it. Usually they have bars on windows in New York City. I don't really like that. It's not a cool aesthetic. Or even just the noise from the front door. People potentially like breaking in because my apartment door is the first one they see when they walk in the building. So that's a deal breaker. So safety in this apartment, that was a huge part about like why I chose this place too, because I knew I would be alone. And that's why I say in all of my apartment videos, like the listen to your gut feeling when you're searching for a place, because that is so important. And I was really lucky that even though I found this apartment during COVID, I was able to come and visit the apartment in person, and a lot of people don't have that luxury, especially if they're moving from out of state and it's just from like a FaceTime or something. That can be really tricky because your gut can tell you a lot, and if you don't feel safe coming into a building when you're visiting it, you're not going to feel safe coming into the building when you live there. So just don't put yourself through that. But I always do have to be conscious about when I'm traveling around here at night. You know, I have a lot of locks on my door. That was another thing. Like if I didn't have a lot of locks, I would add it. And I know my neighbors, and so I do feel safe that I know they're not going to break in. But you always just never know. And I really generally don't walk around at night, and I just try not to put myself in situations where something bad might happen. And I work daytime hours now, so it helps, you know, in terms of riding the subway too. But those are things I have to be conscious of living alone, that I'm not being followed home, that I'm not being followed into the building. That kind of stuff is scary, but that's why safety living alone in New York City is huge, and that applies to like anywhere you live, not just New York City. I think there's a lot to be said. Or going to the kitchen. I actually have to cook up some dinner. I have salmon thawing, 8:40, and I'm just cooking dinner. But I know that I had some sort of idea about living alone in New York City in my head, and it was just so dreamy, and I would wake up and just have this aesthetic life, but it ended up being pretty lonely. I'm very fortunate for the situation that I'm in, but yeah, there's sometimes I wish I just had people to live with and to watch a movie with, and even a pet. This building doesn't allow any pets, and not that I could really afford a pet right now, but just it would be nice to know in the future if I could get a dog or a cat, just to have some sort of company, you know? And fish don't really do it for me anymore, so that's kind of sad. So once you get over kind of the loneliness of it, it's actually kind of nice. It's peaceful. That's another thing too, like living alone, you have the opportunity to bring over anybody and not have to run it through your roommate. And oh my gosh, a huge pro is not having to share the bathroom. I really had no issue with other roommates sharing a bathroom, but it's just nice to know that when you wake up in the morning, the bathroom's available. And you get to design it however you want. I really honestly didn't do as much as this apartment deserves. But I'm also like not that picky about design stuff, and I'm not really good at it either. There's definitely something to be said about living alone, but it's also a privilege to be able to do it in New York, because the requirements to live by yourself or to sign for your own studio apartment, the requirements are nuts. You really have to know someone with money in order to do it. You can't say everyone needs to live alone at least once in their life. Like, it's different now than it was before, and having your own space is a privilege, and I recognize that and will never take it for granted. And this place has really become sacred to me, and if I let anybody in this apartment, truly, it makes me feel really vulnerable, even though it's just friends, because everything in here is mine, and everything has a certain place, and everything is chosen to be here by me, and this room is an extension of me, and it's where I feel safe. And so I don't just let anybody here who I don't trust, because the energy of your apartment is everything, at least to me. And if I feel like someone's violating that energy of my space, then I certainly don't want them there. It's a big wide world, and it's my corner. This is mine. I mean, I'm renting it, but it's mine. So I hope that gave you a realistic perspective of what it's like living here by yourself, and hopefully you'll have a good experience just like me if you find your own place. But also, if you live alone, like, be really nice to your super and your landlord, pay on time, be a really good tenant, because then they'll like keep your rent relatively low. And I'm really relieved that they're not raising my rent this year, even though I'm on a discounted price. Being a good tenant, it does pay off. If you have any more apartment questions, let me know, or any video ideas you want me to make, pop them down in the comments, and make sure to like this video if it was helpful for you, and subscribe. Thank you so much for watching, everybody, and I will see you in my next video. Love you, bye!